Okay, Coach, this past weekend had your final games of the regular season, honored your seniors on Friday, had a top-ranked WT at home, took game one with them with a big statement win. Just talk about what you saw from your team in the final weekend of the regular season.
Well, yeah, I think, first and foremost, the seniors, especially, with a class of 10 seniors, it was a really fun weekend to see a lot of families come back and be there and support those girls we started out with a bang against Midwestern, just went out and really looked sharp, looked really good, and then game two just made a couple little mistakes that gave them some extra runs and battled back and had a couple big hits there late to get it right back into it, and just couldn't get that extra hit that we needed, so we dropped that one, which was disappointing. But for whatever reason, Midwestern is our nemesis this year. They took 3 or 4 from us, so kudos to them. But Saturday we had a great luncheon. Shout out to our Backing the Bells group that provided that meal for those girls. That was a great day, and then yesterday was such a great environment. The crowd was amazing. It was a playoff type atmosphere. A lot of times when you're playing at home in regular season and something happens good, some people will clap here and there, maybe shout out a little bit. But yesterday you heard that roar coming out of Meyer Stadium or Meyer Field and out of those stadium seats up there, and you just heard that roar, and that's it was awesome. It was a great environment, and our girls played really well. We played really well and went out and beat them 7-0. Cheyenne pitched her tail off again, and our defense was flawless yesterday. Got huge hits up and down the lineup all day long, and that was definitely a good for our team going into the playoffs, to be able to go out there and handle them, knowing that we're going to their place for the conference tournament and probably going to their place for the regional tournament. So to be able to go beat them handily, was nice. And then game two was a nail biter till the very end, and we had a chance one swing away, had a couple opportunities, just didn't get the hit, and had a chance to sweep them there, but wasn't able to get that done. But it's like I told our girls after the game, I think we're playoff ready.
And speaking of playoffs, looking ahead, you face Eastern New Mexico in the first round of the LSC tournament. You faced this team just 2 weeks ago in some pretty close high-scoring games. You swept them this season, so what can we expect this third time around?
Well, it was Katie and I were talking yesterday, when we found out who we were going to play, and she's like, oh my God, I don't want to play Eastern New Mexico again. And I'm like, there is no good draw. When you get to the top 8 teams in the Lone Star Conference, you're going to say, no matter who you get, it's going to be like, oh God, we got to play them. So Eastern is definitely a team that we had some really good battles with this year. We were able to take all 4 from them, but a couple of them we kind of blew them out, but the other 2 were really back and forth games, and a lot of fun, a lot of good environment. They bring a lot of intensity to the ballpark. I'd like to think that we do as well. So they're a fun matchup right now because of the environment that they help create with their intensity, and they play hard as a team. They've got some great players, but we've had success. Hopefully we can build on that and not look, we got to make sure that as a coaching staff, we're going to talk about not looking past them, which our girls won't. They know how talented Eastern New Mexico is. So we got to go up there and continue to play well. They've got 3 or 4 different pitchers that they can throw at us, so I expect to see all 3 or 4 of them, hopefully. Hopefully, if not, that means number 1's really having a good day. So hopefully we force them into a situation where we have to change pitchers or they have to change pitchers, and then of course we're going to hand the ball to Cheyenne and say, go get them. So hopefully that's the way it worked. We'll have everybody else ready. Cheyenne's throwing the ball extremely well right now. Her last few outings have been really, really good. I think yesterday against WT, she held them to the lowest hit total in a couple of years, or something like that. So, that's impressive, and it was a great way for her to be confident going into the playoffs. And then Amelia Hathorn threw the heck out of it for 6 innings for us. She really did. They just had one big hit, and besides that, she was sharp.
Your team has been defined by senior leadership all season. You mentioned earlier you have 10 of them. Mm-hmm. So how will that serve as a big advantage for you going forward through the LC tournament and beyond?
Well, they got experience now. They've a lot of them were JUCO transfers. Ashton McMillan's the only one that's been here for 4 years. Cheyenne's been here for 3. The rest of them have been here for 2 years. So last year was a new experience for them, and So they kind of now know how this works, and they know the importance of going out and playing well. And it stinks when you travel up there and you go to a banquet and all that. You play one game and come home, and that's what happened to us last year. And you have to enter squad because of that, because you need to get your game reps. And we don't want to have to enter squad. We would rather be going and playing 2 or 3 games this weekend. So, hopefully we can build off that. We've talked about this moment since their end of the year meetings at the end of the year last year about going 0-3 in the playoffs last year and how that's got to stop. And we've talked about, and I talked about it, with their families at the luncheon the other day about how this group came in and fixed what was broken for 1 year. Now, granted, it was just a 1 year broken thing, but they took us from 7th place in the conference back to 3rd last year, 3rd again this year. Now we've got to fix that playoff drought that we've had the last few years. So I feel confident that this team's going to do that, but at the same time, you've got to go play well, because it's Lone Star Conference tournament, which is kind of a stupid statement, but it's almost as tough as a national tournament. So. But that's the mentality that you got to approach it with. Is you got to show up and you got to be ready to play, or you'll come home.
Coach, we were here about a month, maybe a month and a half ago, and you were talking about how you needed to find more consistency from the bottom of your lineup. Well, the last few weeks, from what we've seen on paper and from what you told us, you've seemed to find that. We'll talk about what it means for your team to be able to have the bottom 3 hitters that contribute more to the lineup to give you more overall success. Yeah,
it's huge. Abby Brand comes to mind, sitting at 8 and 9 hole, and she's gone from about a 184 hitter to now hitting around 270, somewhere in that area, 260, and that's huge at the bottom of the lineup. Had a huge sacrifice fly yesterday that almost was a 3-run home run, and then had a couple more hits, I think, and just really having good at bats, still getting hit by pitch. She's on base a lot, and that's really big for us. Carter Smith has picked it up, and her batting average, same thing, has gone from like a 220 up to around that 270. Well, she was over 300 there. So I didn't look today to see where she's probably around that 290, 295, 300 area. Lauren Dela Cruz is having good at-bats. She's not necessarily getting a ton of hits, but she has good at-bats for us. Zoe had a couple of big doubles for us to drive in some runs. So yeah, that's huge. Leilana is still, killing it. Erin is on base a lot, and Tatiana, those are the dynamic ones. McMillan, Avery, but now when we start producing down at the bottom of the lineup, that just makes us that much more dangerous. And I think you've seen the run numbers of, our production offensively has really risen, and that's the key reason why. We put up double-digit runs here the last several games. Coming into this past weekend, we scored 7 on WT on Emily Boyer and Heidi Vorthams and Boyer again, and the freshman's name Zelensky Zelensky. That's the Russian, or not the Russian, Ukrainian president. Zelensky. So we saw a lot of different looks in game 1 and scored 7 runs on them, so. I'm proud of the production and the growth of the bottom part of our lineup, and we're going to need that moving forward.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, thank you.